Hey everybody, and welcome to Just the Slip. This is a new physical media and horror podcast from me, your host, Chris. This week on the podcast, we'll be discussing a ton of different stuff, some stuff I picked up, some stuff I watched, some stuff I played, some videos that are coming up on the YouTube channel. So if you don't know who I am, if you're listening to this on anything else other than the YouTube channel, I run a horror and physical media YouTube channel called Nightmare Collective, so definitely check it out, and we'll get right into the show for this week. Now, if you're watching the video version, I do want to kind of point something out very quickly, and then we'll never discuss this again. So you may be seeing that I am like side viewed here. Reason being, it's not an artistic choice. It may be to an extent, but it is because I have a 48-inch monitor here, and that's what I use to edit. That's what I play games on. That's what I do everything on. It's an OLED monitor. That's what I use. So having a webcam or a camera in front of me is near impossible. So that's why if you see me, you're getting this lovely side beard view of all the gray that's in my beard and some movies behind me. But that is why. We're never going to speak of it again. But I've got some coffee here, and we're going to get right into this show. So this week, I figured we'd kind of test the waters out. I am going to probably change things over time. Obviously, I eventually would like to have like a Q&A at the very end of the show. So once we get this more out to people and I kind of, ask people for questions, which I have not done, I do have some questions that people have asked me before. So I'll kind of use those as some inaugural questions to answer at the end. But at first, I wanted to talk about kind of some things that I've been watching, things that I've been playing game-wise, because I do play some video games, so I kind of wanted to, I don't usually talk about that on the channel, but, it's my podcast, so I'll do what I want. Anyway, I have watched a few movies this week that we're going to discuss. Where is it at? I watched Dr. Terror's House of Horrors, which I recently got from my subscriber box from Vinegar Syndrome. I watched a movie called Paganini Horror. It's a Ling Ling challenge to get through that. If you get that reference, then you're awesome. And I also watch wild YouTube channels that have nothing to do with what I actually do. So go Ling Ling. Anyway, what else did I get? I picked up some stuff secondhand. I got some stuff from that. This isn't going to be my full March horror haul. That will be in a separate video. So definitely check that out. This is just a sampling, an amuse-bouche of what I got this month. But anyway, some of this I just got this week. I do have some steelbooks in here from the Walmart ones that released. My Walmart had a good-sized end cap. I didn't have any of those $5 ones that people have been finding, so, I missed out on those. Some of those I already have, so it's not really, it's a lot of Lionsgate stuff. I have a lot of those already, so I wasn't running out to get those. Some of them I didn't have, so I did pick up the ones. They were normal price, but I still will be looking here and there. I need to check by work and check that Walmart out and see if any of those show up there. But anyway, so what have I been watching? What have I been playing this week? I have been continuing to play Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm an avid RPG player, if you don't know that. So we'll talk a little bit about video games on this channel. Not much on the show, but I kind of want to give a brief update. I am more than physical media and horror. I am more than that. I do more other things. I feel like sometimes people think that's and some YouTubers may only do that. Some of us may only do that stuff. I have so many hobbies that I will never speak of here, and maybe this is the place to do it, but I have a number of different hobbies that I do other than just physical media or horror and stuff like that. That's why a lot of times I got out of the game of reviewing new horror movies, is that it literally was getting in the way of my other hobbies, and I was doing that as opposed to doing other things. And I also have never wanted to be a reviewer. I think that's when I started my channel. I kind of started out maybe thinking that's what I wanted to do, in the vein of some of the other YouTubers prior to me. But eventually I was just like, man, I don't want to do this. I don't want to get embroiled in conversations with people where they're just like, well, I like this and I don't. And I don't care enough literally about the movie to fight for it, especially if it's brand new. It hasn't even sat with you yet, and you're arguing with me whether or not Blood and Honey is a fantastic movie or not. Am I going to see Winnie the Pooh 2? I don't know. I don't know if I want to waste my time. There's some other stuff that I want to do, and I wouldn't review it. If I did see it, we would talk about it on the podcast, but I don't know that I'm going to be seeing it, so we'll see. If the next Sunday comes around, these episodes were primarily released on Mondays, by the way. So I'll record on Sunday, release on Monday. So if you want to know when these are coming out, it's going to be Monday. I haven't set a time yet, but we will set an exact time that these go out so you guys know. But anyway, I don't know. Sunday morning. I'm always off on Sundays primarily, so that's what I'm going to do this thing. Anyway, so those are the things I've been playing. I have dipped my toes into some Dragon's Dogma 2. I know there's some like controversy around the microtransactions and all of that stuff. That is video games, so I don't know what more we could complain all day about microtransactions in video games, but that's not what we're here for. So I've been playing a lot of Dragon's Dogma 2. I put about 5 or 6 hours into it. I really like it. I liked the first one, but I came to it super late, so it was one of those things that I saw the appeal and the charm of the thing, but it just didn't like sink its teeth into me. The dragon did not sink its teeth into me directly. What have I been watching? That's more of the case. So I want to get these. Like I said, we'll show off a few things, but I did watch Dr. Terror's House of Horrors. There it is. And so I really enjoyed this. It's been a long time since I had seen this movie. It's like a little anthology movie. It's got Peter Cushing in it. It's got Roy Carson in it. It's got Christopher Lee in it. There's so many people in this movie. It's an incredible movie. Peter Cushing plays Dr. Terror, and basically all these men board a train, and he is pulling out tarot cards and basically like, hey, tap on it 3 times. I'll be able to tell you what your future is. And then the final card will basically say your destiny. And they all end up being very similar, but it's a cool little anthology movie, all like Creepshow, but just in a very different manner. And I really, really like it. Aesthetically, it is a very cool movie. The presentation, the 4K is incredible. It looks fantastic. It's got a great mono track. Christopher Lee is fantastic in the movie, and overall, I just had a really good time. It's one that I was happy to add to my collection. Like I said, I'll be showing this more off in depth in my horror haul for the month, but I also did show off this in my Vinegar Syndrome monthly unboxing. All right, what else did we do? What else did we watch this past week or so? Well, week or two. The podcast just started, so we'll go back a week or two. I recently watched and covered Dark Water. So there's that. I opted to go with the one sheet art on this because I really like the original art. I did get the new art as well. I flipped that around, but I really like the Japanese art for this. So that's what I went. I love Dark Water. I go really in depth in that 4K review, but it's one of my favorite J-horror movies of all time. It just kind of is very unsettling. It's very, very realistic take on a mother and her daughter and sometimes the struggles that can imbue on your life. So definitely check that out if you've never seen Dark Water. That came to us from Arrow. They did a fantastic job on the transfer, so definitely loving that. And then I also did Child's Play this past week. I don't know that I'm a huge fan of this movie. I'm a huge Chucky fan. This movie to me, like, hopefully is just unnecessary, but I wanted to round out the collection of Chucky movies and Child's Play, and so when it came out, I was like, you know what, whatever. We'll round it up. We'll end the collection. And, I wanted to give it a rewatch too because I hadn't seen it since it came out. And I was like, well, maybe I'll have changed my mind. It's fine. It's not a bad movie by any means. It's just fine. The transfer does look really good. It's a new 4K transfer from the master. So it was shot digitally. So it does look fantastic. It is probably one of the better looking movies out of what I've got here just because it is new. It's like from 2019. So it is a little bit newer than the other ones. But like I said, I enjoyed watching it. I like Aubrey Plaza a lot. Aubrey Plaza a lot. So she kind of carries it for me. And then I think the kid's okay. The doll is horrendous. And Mark Hamill does a decent job. But, overall, it's just fine. All right. The next thing that I kind of got and did a couple weeks ago was the Ring collection with its shiny ass cover. I'm going to say it right now. I fucking hate this packaging. I really do. For as much as I like Scream Factory, I have like toiled with the idea of like completely getting rid of my Scream Factory collection. I don't know. It's one of those things like I watch the stuff once and then it's like, do I like it? I don't really like the packaging. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's cheap. Their transfers are usually good, but again, I'm just getting so tired of it. And as a massive Vinegar Syndrome fan, it's just like every month getting these really nice, really solid, like Vinegar Syndrome releases with these like really embossed things, this, really thick cardboard for the slip covers. I don't know. I'm just like kind of tired of buying their stuff and giving them money. It just sucks because they get a lot of the great movies that I want as far as like more mainstream horror. So it's one of those things that you kind of got to fight a battle. It's a losing battle because you don't know. You're like, all right, well, either don't buy these movies or I deal with the shitty packaging. And so I have opted for a long time to just deal with the shitty packaging, but I don't buy as much as I used to. I'm going to be honest. I'm not a completionist for Scream Factory. I don't care. I didn't buy the new Carrie release. I don't buy movies I don't like from them. And a lot of those, 9 out of 10 times, I've seen the movies that they're putting out. They're not like anything that's crazy or unheard of. So it's some of that stuff. They do very big horror, and even sometimes when it's like a little less known, it's not that less known. Anyway, it's not like our next title we're going to be talking about here, which I picked up secondhand. I went Blu-ray hunting the other day at my local shop, and I picked up Paganini Horror. This comes to us from Severin, and I actually just finished this morning. I'd watched it yesterday, and then I got very tired. And then I actually watched another movie too that is over there. I'm not gonna go get it, but it's Maya. It's the Maya Inspectors. So 2 of the titles that are coming up from Vinegar Syndrome. It was pretty good. It was pretty decent. But then I got Paganini Horror and I watched this. So kind of how this came about, which is kind of interesting. Let me take the tag off here. But Luigi Cozzi, Kazizi, I think is his last name. He was actually in the process of writing a Paganini biopic, and it was going to star Christopher Lambert, which is fantastic, by the way. I wish Christopher Lambert had been in this movie, but he's not. So anyway, the director was going to write this thing, and then he was in a movie, and it flopped tremendously. Flopped so bad that they were like, hey, we need to scrap this Paganini biopic with Christopher Lambert because we thought he was going to be like shot into the stratosphere. This movie flopped, and Christopher Lambert is fantastic. He's great. I love Highlander. Anyway, so I watched this. It's an 80s like Italian. The best thing about this movie is the cover. This cover is fantastic. So the artwork up there was actually done by a different guy, and then they kind of self-imposed the house and then the stuff on here. Really has nothing to do. I wish that the mask in this looked kind of like that, but you realize you're like, this is like the old days when you got a VHS cover and you were buying stuff for video games where you're like, I'm going to buy this purely based on the cover. This is that movie. And this gave me that feeling when I pulled this off the shelf and I was like, oh my God, I need to know what this is. Anyway, this also harkens back to a Paganini thing. I am a massive fan, even though I don't play the violin. I love Two Set Violins, and I love their YouTube channel. And that got me thinking. I'm like trying to trudge through this. Like I said earlier, is a Ling Ling challenge. So if you've watched them before, know what that is, then you'll get the reference. If not, go check out Two Set Violins. They're fantastic. Very funny guys that play the violin. Anyway, so I just kept thinking about that the whole time, about this Paganini stuff, and it's got Donald Pleasance in it, which is great, and he's fantastic. He's not in that movie. He's in the movie for like, I don't know, a total of like maybe 5 minutes, but it's great. It's a fun little movie about Paganini. Basically, there's a band, and one of the guys reaches out and basically finds some lost music from Paganini, buys it from Donald Pleasance. We won't give away who he is, but it gives it away. And as is most notably known, people theorize that Paganini sold his soul to the devil to have his musical aptitude. And so that kind of plays into the movie. Anyway, this band buys it. They start playing it. The hell and horror of Paganini comes to life. So it is very, I wouldn't even say generic. It's very just low budget horror. But it was a fun watch. Watching the rest of it this morning, I was like, oh man. There's some great interviews with the director and writer of it, and kind of gives that backstory about like Lambert and all that stuff. So that's kind of where I got all that info. But fantastic. It's fun. It's from Severin. I've started to buy some more Severin. Actually, I like a lot of their stuff. It's just they weren't in my wheelhouse, or I missed some of this stuff. So I'm kind of like, I'm moving over more, honestly, from Scream Factory, getting off of them when I was doing a lot of that stuff. Because a lot of those, I just wanted to own those movies, and I missed out a lot on the Blu-rays because I wasn't collecting Scream Factory back in the day. So I kind of find it as a rectifying thing where I'm like, okay, I'll get these 4Ks as they come out because I don't own a lot of the Blu-rays. But it's kind of just got to the point where I don't care as much anymore about this stuff, and I'm just kind of, I just want weird movies and horror movies as opposed to just like, yeah, like owning Child's Play is cool, but I don't even watch it all the time. I'm looking for more weird stuff. So I've started to kind of dip back in and get a lot more Severin. Speaking of Severin, I will be getting Spider Labyrinth. So I do want to do a 4K review of that because I love that movie so much, and I'm curious to see how that is. So that'll be something that comes up this week. I think it comes out Tuesday, so I think it's the 26th. So hopefully I'll have it before then and I can dive in. But I'm looking forward to Spider Labyrinth because I love it. Anyway, what else did I get? Secondhand, I also got. Speaking of Scream Factory, it's fine. We'll deal with it for a minute. I got Tales from the Crypt presents Demon Knight. Surprisingly, I don't own this movie. I love Demon Knight. It's incredible. I don't think I need to sit here and spout the greatness of Billy Zane and William Sadler and Demon Knight. If you either know or you don't know. Watch Demon Knight. I shouldn't have to sit here and tell you about Demon Knight. Speaking of that, I also finally found this. I could have ordered it, but this was one that I found, but it also got me thinking because I had picked up the Creepshow Steelbook, and so I have seen this before. I just didn't own it. Synapse does a lot of great stuff, and so I think I'd actually gotten something else from Synapse recently. Oh yeah. Well, another movie we'll talk about, and so that was like, oh yeah. So I got Just Desserts. I'm probably gonna watch it again because I haven't seen it in a while. But I think this came out in like 2007 or something like that. So it's been a long time, but I have watched it, and I do want to dive into it again. But that led me to. That got me thinking about it when I was looking for it because I picked up the Creepshow Steelbook. So pretty great overall. I know there was a big kind of snafu about some of the audio on this, and this comes into where I think my biggest problem with Scream Factory is just like the quality control on like not only just like their packaging and like stuff coming dislodged, which is obviously known, but just the labeling of their packaging. They get a lot of stuff wrong. They did it on what was it? Silver Bullet is wrong with the audio options there. Creepshow, which had an Atmos at the time, didn't say it had an Atmos. There was a lot of confusion because they rectified that with the Creepshow Steelbook, and so people thought the Steelbook was the only one that had the Atmos, when in reality it was on the original one. People just didn't know about it. And some people getting up in arms. I've watched videos and people are like, oh, you should have known this. Well, not everybody's on the forums for Blu-ray. Some people are just buying movies, and because it doesn't say it, they don't go into the audio options. They just press fucking play. They're not, engaged in this medium like everybody is. So I think that's kind of my mistake. You might find this shocking. Okay. This might be controversial, a hot take. I don't watch a lot of physical media YouTubers. I just don't. Nothing against any of them. I do watch stuff selectively, but because I'm more on the pulse myself, I know what I like. I'm typically buying what I like. So a lot of people are not buying the stuff that I like, and I'm going to buy whatever I want. So I know some people are like, well, I spend my money. I buy it. I don't really care sometimes about the transfers. Sometimes I don't own the movies and I want to own it. And if that's the best way, regardless of if it's the best way to buy it, like my Abyss. I'm still waiting on my Abyss copy, but I have the VHS. Like if I can watch a 4K copy that is like somewhat competent, then that's the way I'd rather watch it than on some grainy ass terrible VHS copy. I love VHSs, but for some of this stuff, like especially like the Abyss, which is such a great movie, especially like the director's cut of that movie, the theatrical is garbage. It's garbage. Don't watch it. Anyway, I love the director's cut of that movie. And so for me, like sometimes I want a readily more available. Now I do have a VHS player hooked up behind me. I watch a lot of VHSs because I own a lot of VHSs. But, sometimes in the modern day, I'm like, man, I just want to pop this in and get some nice visuals and stuff like that and turn off my brain to all this DNR crap and all this stuff. A lot of people, it's kind of funny how like the last couple of months, like we've had all these YouTubers retire, and then now it's been this thing. Like I know Jeff put out a video. I don't really watch Jeff, but I watched another guy. What is his name? Got it. I'm gonna get it because I don't want to mess up his actual the name of his channel. Boutique Blu-rays with Elliot Cohen. I really like Elliot. He's got a sound thing, and so he kind of responded to, I had seen it, I just didn't watch it because like I said, I don't care enough really. I think Jeff's fine, but his content has always been very generic for me, so I don't really watch it. Nothing against him. He's probably a nice dude, but I just have never watched it. And it's not what I'm looking for on YouTube. Surprisingly, like I said, I don't watch a lot of that stuff. Anyway, so he made a response to that. And then also before that, I watched his video on movie collecting burnout. And so I'm in a similar boat there. And so I just kind of wanted to say, it's like, yeah, we're taking that shit too serious. We always take that shit too serious. And so I know as collectors, we have like stuff that we really like, stuff that we don't like, or nitpicks and stuff like that. And a lot of times it's over exaggerated. Even when I'm in a 4K review, I typically only cover stuff that I really like and think is worth it. I don't really have a lot of negativity as far as 4Ks go. And I really, honestly, like that's why I want to kind of have this podcast too, because some of that I've never wanted to boast. Not that I'm afraid to say if something's good or bad. The Footloose transfer is bad, but a lot of that is come down to, honestly, the transfer. Not the transfer. The source material for Footloose is garbage. So blaming that really on Paramount, I have done in-depth stuff on that stuff. That movie has never looked good. And it never will look good. So it's one of those things that, yeah, the Footloose transfer sucks, but who cares? It's fucking Footloose. You're not there for the visuals. It's not like Dune. You're fucking here for Kevin Bacon and the music. So who gives a shit? So I am by no means afraid to say if something sucks. I typically just don't buy a lot of movies that I know are going to suck or the transfers suck, because I do a lot of research where I buy stuff, or I know the boutiques that I'm getting into, or I know what the source material is, or it's fine because the movie's old. I'm not sitting here like Southern Comfort. Some people are talking about like that transfer, and I'm like, yeah, it's an interpositive for one. Most people may not even know what that is, so it's not going to be the best transfer anyway because it's an interpositive. It's not the actual source. It's not the 35 millimeter negative, so it is different. It's going to not have as much detail as the actual 35 millimeter negative. So, or any negative at that, it's an interpositive. So it just kind of strips away some of that detail. But that movie looks great. It's a Walter Hill film. It's old. It's not been preserved particularly well. So they're doing the best they can. And also Vinegar Syndrome leaves shit alone. They don't add DNR. They don't do anything like that. They don't even do Dolby Vision. They do just HDR10. So I wish sometimes I did Dolby Vision, but, I'm not going to complain. Vinegar Syndrome is my favorite boutique, and I'm not going to complain about those things because they do fantastic work. Anyway, let's continue on before I get into minutia of complaining about YouTube stuff that I don't actually watch. Anyway, one thing I did pick up, and one thing I would recommend to you, if you're looking to collect Vinegar Syndrome, I'm actually going to be making a video called Should You Collect Vinegar Syndrome? And I'll go more in depth in this, but as someone who collects a lot of Vinegar Syndrome and is trying to get stuff that I don't own for Vinegar Syndrome, there is a great way other than eBay to kind of get stuff. Now, if it's out of print, it's out of print. I can't help you there. You're going to pay eBay prices for it. And then it comes down to whether or not you want the slip of it, and that's going to cost you a pretty penny. Some of those slips can go by themselves for $40, $50, sometimes $70. If you want the movie, it's going to be $70, $80. So you got to kind of decide. But here, if you're just down for the movies, and like me, sometimes I'm going to buy the movie, and then if I want to get the slip down the line, I'll try to go to eBay, and if it's a reasonable price, then sometimes I'll get it. I have done a lot more of those, but it's mainly like the April Fool's one. Like I got the Fatal Games April Fool's one because I didn't have that one. I'll sometimes get like the comic variant one like I did for Tammy the T-Rex and Bloodbeat. So if they have like some interesting covers, or the Vinegar Syndrome like member club, I've got some of those covers. So if it's something like that, I might go after it. Or if it's a really old and it's something I want, or if it's like $20, I'm not paying more than $20 for a slip. I'm not going to do that, especially if I got the movie for $10. I'm paying $20 for the slip. It's about $30 for the movie, which is what I probably would have paid anyway. So I'm not too adverse to that. But if you're looking to get some of their stuff that is going out, so like realistically, there's some stuff that's going to be going out of print. The best way to do that is just to go to Vinegar Syndrome and then search their stuff. And then you can actually see like going out of print. You can just select that. And then what I always do is I sort from low to high. You can sort from old to new, whatever you need to do. And then you can start looking. So I picked up a bunch of these actually because there's a bunch of them I didn't own. So again, that's another way of getting some Vinegar Syndrome stuff that's going out of print, and for cheaper. They're usually range from like $10 to $25 depending on like how new it is. Again, a lot of the slipcovers are gone, so it's going to be one of those things that you're just going to be getting the standard edition. But again, if you just want the movies, and for me at this point, like I'm just trying to fill my back catalog. And now they don't if you've seen my videos, you'll see a lot of my Vinegar Syndrome stuff is at the top. A lot of that stuff that's not everything I have. That's just a lot of the newer stuff, so that I keep just the new stuff up there. Some of it's stuff I haven't watched. Some of it's stuff that I like to talk about. So I do have an entire bottom shelf down there that's Vinegar Syndrome. That is stuff that doesn't have slipcovers or just older that's not up there. Because I typically now am trying to, what I did is I wanted to try and kind of see what I was collecting from the year. And so that's why that Vinegar Syndrome stuff's over there. So I can probably do a big video at the end of the year and I don't have to remember what did I buy, what did I not buy. So you might see some non-slip stuff up there because I'm going to try and collect that stuff. But let's continue on with what else I got that was pretty cool. So I got the next release in the Cinematograph line called Going South. This is a film. It's kind of like a Western comedy by Jack Nicholson. I haven't watched this yet. I'm not sure if I'm going to probably won't do a 4K review, but we will talk about it in next week's podcast because I'll probably have watched it. But these are pretty cool. Justin Liberty is kind of the overseer and designer of this label. He's awesome. I follow him on Twitter. Really solid guy. Super cool. Loves physical media. Loves all that stuff. So shout out to him. There's a very cool video with him and I think Just the Disc. Did an interview that kind of goes really in depth with that stuff. I do have some more notes here because I do want to continue on and let's see what else I have. Sorry, this is a little more jumbled than it will normally be, Anyway, let's see. Oh, some upcoming videos. So like I said, obviously this podcast, we're going to be doing Spider Rabbit this week. I'm going to be doing my March physical media haul, so definitely look forward to that. So I will be pitting out my Should You Collect Vinegar Syndrome video, hopefully in the next week or so. And then I'm going to try and do those monthly or bi-monthly, depending on how much it is. But I want to actually bring in some other creators that love specific boutiques and kind of talk to them and kind of have them more shout out why they love those different boutiques. But as Vinegar Syndrome is hopefully my favorite, I am going to cover that one by myself. Maybe down the line we'll do a second part to it. But I'm going to be doing a second site one with Frank's Media and Reviews. He's an up-and-coming physical media channel. He does a lot of like typical physical media stuff, so definitely check Frank out. But he'll be on the channel. We've talked a few times, but looking forward to kind of diving in and doing some videos there. And then what else we got? Also, one big thing. So this is going to go more into like the history of my channel and like me personally, but I've been covering a lot of physical media as of late. It was one of those things that I was covering new horror movies and doing reviews. I covered some, I was experimenting a lot. I did a lot of different videos and I had a series that went away. And so I did a couple of different series. Obviously, as YouTubers, we try a lot of different things out. So I had like my A24 horror journey. And then I really just didn't like a lot of the A24 horror movies. I just didn't. They're not my thing. I don't like elevated horror. I just don't like that stuff. I like trashy B-movie weird horror. That's what I like. So for me, it did nothing for me. Hereditary, I thought was dumb. It didn't move the needle for me at all. I didn't like it. The only thing I really liked was, and I'm blanking on the name of the movie, but give me a second. I have a review for it on my channel. Saint Maud. I really liked Saint Maud. That was one of those movies that I thought that, and I thought I liked The Witch and I liked The Lighthouse. So those were movies that I didn't love The Lighthouse, but I liked it enough. So it was one of those things that I liked those movies, but then it kind of got into like, as a series, it kind of burnt me out because I was like, these movies are just not for me. I know why people love them. I can see it, but that like artsy shit just isn't for me. That's just my personal opinion. I'm going to choose, Headhunter or, Last Grasp or whatever it is, or Paganini horror over any of that stuff any day of the week. So if you didn't know that about me, which I'm assuming you do. But anyway, so where I was going with this is that I got away from covering older horror movies, which is what I really set out the channel to do from the onset. That's what I wanted to do. That's what the whole description of my channel is. And if we even go back and read it, and this is kind of what got me, is that I wanted to do this And so this is what my like description says. As a huge horror fan all my life, I've always searched for weird, atmospheric, and obscure horror movies. My goal with this channel is to continue with that. However, I would like to bring everyone along on my journey. I want to have conversations and branch out and experience movies. Well, shows. I don't really watch TV that much. I wouldn't normally gravitate towards. So if you'd like to come on this journey with me, join the collective. Anyway, I have hopefully gotten away from that motto. I have. And it kind of bums me out. And anyway, what I was going to with Elliot's video on burnout is that I've gotten so embroiled in like the nonsense and the nitty gritty and the 4K nonsense that I have stopped really looking at movies for movies, and I have stopped watching weird horror movies. I've been so obsessed with like the physical media aspect of horror and all of this stuff that I've lost sight of why I started my YouTube channel. So that's more where I wanted to move the podcast to, so I could talk about these physical media stuff. I'd still cover 4Ks when they're big enough, and that I really am excited to talk about the movies themselves, but I can move the rest of the conversation to the podcast. If it's something I want to talk about, or if it's a release I want to talk about, it's going to be here. And it's one of those things that I had a series. Now, if you've followed me from the very beginning, you'll know I used to do these episodes called Nightmare Flashbacks. I'd done Flatliners, I did The Howling, I did Krampus, Trick or Treat. I did a few of them, and they were just kind of looking back at horror movies that I really liked. They could be really old. They typically weren't within the last 5 years. So that was kind of my cutoff, is 5 years. Is if it's in the last 5 years, it was more modern. If it was prior to that, 5 years, and it could kept expanding because then I could add movies, obviously, in the last 5 years. Some new ones would crop up and I could cover them. But typically it was like 70s, 80s, 90s stuff. Trick or Treat was a Halloween episode, so I did that. Krampus was a Christmas episode, so that's kind of where I kind of altered that line, but again, they were not within the last 5 years. Primarily, it was that, and I kind of got away from that. And then I was doing just horror movie reviews and just doing stuff like that. And then it's suddenly like the physical media stuff did a little better than that stuff because they're weird movies. And so it was like, okay, I'm not getting the views. And so I shifted wholly my channel for the views, which you should never do. Don't do that. So now after discussing with a friend, an in real life friend, about this stuff, and then kind of having my own just sit down and think about like what I was here to accomplish. Like if you take out like wanting to do this for a living or wanting to like financially be able to support yourself and do that stuff. Look, I'm in a niche and a niche and a niche on top of a niche. So me wanting to do this like for real is going to be very complicated and very difficult. And while I would love to do it, I would love to do this. This is part of this podcast, reaching out to this, because I don't talk enough about the stuff that I love on the channel because it's very specific, and I've kind of grown tired of that. And it was really, I'd be very honest, it was like, do this podcast, talk about the stuff that I really love, or quit. And not that I was quitting out of like something where it was like, oh, I'm going to quit because I'm not making any money or I'm not getting views. I could care less really about that. It's more that I was not able to discuss the things that I wanted to discuss. And then, you also, you got to stop watching people that have success and why they have success and doing different things. I'll be very honest and blunt here. I find a lot of the stuff in this field to be very generic. It's nothing against those creators, but I set out to do something different. Or not even different, but along the lines of some people that, that I really admired, like Good Bad Flicks. That was kind of my really inspiration, and nothing to do with like some of the horror creators. Like really, that dude was the dude that kind of set me on a path. Cause like, man, that dude loves the same fucking horror movies that I do. There's weird shit that no one talks about, or if they do, there's not a production value to it. There's that. That was my aspect. Like, how can we do this in a way that isn't a dude sitting on his floor in his house? Not that that's a bad thing. Like, everybody starts somewhere, but how can I leverage my history with like video making and content and like audio work and do all of that and make it presented in a way that's like this, not high budget, but this mid-budget, like nice camera, audio, and talk about horror movies. Now, I've wavered from that. Like I, gotten better or worse, all of that stuff as I put more effort into it and do all of that. But my goal from the onset was to kind of bring light to movies people had never seen before. And I lost sight of that, I think. Like, great. I covered Child's Play on 4K. Everybody knows what that movie is. Like, nobody's like, oh, you may have never seen it, but it's not like I'm bringing anything that's like weird to you. Whereas like, if we're talking like like most of you may have never heard about Paganini Horror. You may never have watched it. You may never looking for it. It's not going to be on the streaming services. So it's one of those things that like, that was my goal. And I was kind of mixing that with new horror movies, which I just don't find that interesting anymore because it was kind of mixing my audience. Like, so am I never going to cover a new horror movie again? I can't say that I'm not going to. Never say never. I apparently have to come out of retirement of doing that to cover Beetlejuice. People on Twitter are like, I got to come out, I guess, and review that. So I guess I'll review that when it comes out. And so we'll see how that goes. But I kind of lost sight of that. And I know I'm going very tangential, but this is my first episode. So I want to kind of get all this out of the way. And so that's kind of what led me to where we are now. With the, introduction of the podcast, I can talk more freely and just have more of like a laid back conversation. We're going to talk about horror. We're going to talk about physical media. We're going to talk about other stuff, but it's more freeing. Like I don't feel beholden to like some audience that's just here for the 4K. Like, is the 4K good? Or do you have a slipcover? Do you have this? Like, the nonsense I think has gotten so where I've collected myself in that, where I'm like wrapped up in just buying all this stuff for no reason, and I'm collecting, and I kind of forgot the philosophy in which I started collecting. And I actually went through a ton of shit yesterday and sold a bunch of stuff. That's what led me to getting Paganini Horror. Paganini Horror is a make or break situation, which is funny. And that's actually not even it. It's actually Basket Case 2. So, which is going to be my next episode and rebirth of the Nightmare Flashbacks. All this to say I'm bringing back Nightmare Flashbacks. And I'm going to start covering old horror movies again in that context. I was covering them to an extent, and like the remodeling and like update of my channel began when I covered Ice Cream Man. So like I said, if you've been with me since then, you kind of saw the thumbnail shifts, you saw all that kind of stuff, and I was doing these like really cool, just very simple like title and cover art for the things. That's a good and a bad thing. Nobody really knows what it is. Sometimes it gets hurt. Sometimes it's very good. It's like very just stand out. It stands out. So Nightmare Flashbacks for me kind of embodies me being able to discuss the movie a little bit more in depth. And I haven't decided. I'll probably go to my normal setup and do kind of a camera thing, but I haven't really decided. That's going to be kind of one of those things where I experiment. And I don't want to go like fully talking over like movie clips. That's not really what I want to go into. I don't know if it'll be full breakdown like I did with The Howling and with Flatliners, where I like discuss the plot in full, or if there's going to be like short, like 7-8 minute reviews. So I've experimented a lot of stuff. So just know if you liked that stuff, it is coming back. Some of my audience may be here just for physical media, which is cool. It's not going away. I made a whole podcast, obviously, to talk about physical media and horror. But just know that I am getting back to kind of my roots on why I started this channel. And I have never been more motivated to do that. I think as of late than this kind of like freed my brain and was like, cool, I've been in this cloud of like, what do I do? What do I cover? Constantly just being in this grind of like, oh, I've got to buy this one movie so I can cover it so people will watch me and stay relevant. And I don't know. So I've had a lot of like conflicted thoughts on like what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what I can do. So I am here to say that I am back kind of in a way. Not that I ever left, not that I don't like what I do with the physical media. I like doing it, but it is, at the end of the day, the videos are more empty. Like, even though obviously you see a lot of my personality in it, they're very hollow in like why people are coming to them. They're just like, is the 4K good? Yeah, okay, I don't care about the rest of it. So talking about the movies, like when somebody clicks on a Basket Case 2 review, they're like, cool, I either love Basket Case 2 or I've never seen Basket Case 2, and I want to know how it turned out. I want to get back to the joy of talking about weird movies. And so, will I have people on this podcast? Hell yeah. We're going to have different people on the podcast, and we're going to talk about stuff like, and then I will be doing some cool episodes of Nightmare Flashbacks. We're going to be covering The Lift and Down with my boy Frank. So he'll be on here, probably the first person I collaborate with like on a Nightmare Flashbacks, but I don't even know if Frank knows that yet. I mean, he watched the movie, so we talked about it, but I don't think he knew in what context we were going to be covering them. Frank, we're doing a Nightmare Flashbacks episode, okay? Anyway, so we're doing a second side video. We're doing that. I'm gonna try and like get out there, collaborate more with not just like physical media people, but some horror people. I have long been a very secluded, very insular like creator, as I have always pretty much been like anal about how I make things. If you don't like the stuff, you don't like the stuff, but how I've created it and like the rate at which I've created and what I wanted to do and what I wanted to accomplish. I feel like I have hit the point where in my 4K reviews, I am doing what I want to do, how I want to do them. I know that how efficiently to do them. And even with the reviews, I got to the point where I was experimenting too much and like I was moving in the process of doing all that stuff. So like the look of the videos was different every time. And not that everybody cares about the stuff, but I do. And so I think sometimes the look and the vibe of the videos kind of holds me back to an extent because I'm very visual. I am somebody who watches YouTube. I'm working on a lot of stuff. Got a lot of like more in-depth stuff, more longer form stuff. I also do have a wholly other channel that maybe one day I'll talk about. I have a video on the channel. If you find it, you find it. I'm not going to tell you what it's called, but if you find it, you find it. It's very different than what I do here. I'm not even in the videos. So one day I will discuss that and like that project. I write that stuff. It's all voice acted. It's all done stuff like that. So like, again, if you find that stuff, cool. But it's one of those things I didn't know if I was like going to fully promote yet, which is why I haven't, but I'm working on a lot of different stuff. And that's kind of where like also working on that channel kind of led me to be like, oh, okay. Like I really enjoy doing this stuff. It really like gets the creative juices flowing. I really like it a lot. And so I was very happy with the outcome of that. I was like unsure of what it was going to do, but happy to say one day I will tell you guys. Maybe in this podcast I'll tell you what it is coming soon. But that's it, man. Let's see if I have anything else. So like I said, we talked about upcoming videos. And then what else was I going to discuss? We talked about Dr. Tears. I wanted to do a quick review on that. Some stuff I'm looking for in April. I was looking over like what you can kind of look forward from me. I don't really know what I'm going to cover 4K wise in April. I know I wouldn't say this is long. This is a podcast. I don't know if this podcast is going to be this long, longer, shorter. I don't know. We're just talking. We're having a conversation and I don't really care. Anyway, I think that's it. I think that's what I wanted to cover today. So we covered all that. We covered some of the stuff that I got. The other movie that I was talking about earlier that I watched was Maya. That was one that was a double feature, Spectres and Maya. I don't know if I ever said the name of it, but QA portion. So this at this point is kind of where I'll go into like the QA portion of like Q&A portion of what I get from you guys, the community. So in the comments below, if you're watching this on YouTube, just leave me some questions and I will filter them and kind of get them going for the next episode. You can tweet at me at TragedyBar. You can email me at thenightmarecollective247@gmail.com if you want to email me some questions or stories or stuff about physical media or horror, like what's your favorite horror movie, like what's the favorite release, of this year. And then you can, like I said, you can tweet at me. I'm not really like on Twitter that much, but you can tweet at the Tragedy Bar and I'll get it there. If you got some Q&As, I'll probably tweet out something about it. But I did have some questions that people have asked me like in general, and I went over some of them here. Like one of them was, am I going to ever cover new horror movies again? That was one question that somebody DM'd me about, because they're like, hey, I came back to your channel. I realized you hadn't been doing like new movie reviews, and with some of these new movies coming out, like, are you going to be covering them? Are you not going to be covering these movies? And so that's kind of where that led me down. Like they asked me specifically about Late Night with the Devil, if I was going to cover it. And that's when I kind of was like, no, I really don't cover new horror movies anymore. It's not that I don't want to, but I have seen that movie. I think it's pretty cool. I know there's like this AI stuff. I didn't even know. I wouldn't have known until I heard about it. So it's one of those things. I'm not going to talk about that here, but the movie's fine. I'm not like overjoyed by it. I think it was pretty cool, but again, that talk show style, I don't know, like it's not really for me. I thought it was fine. It's a cool setting, but again, I thought the movie was fine. But again, that was one of my questions. The other one was just kind of about physical media, like what are my thoughts on like continuing to cover it? Some people have asked me what my favorite label was, so I've gotten a lot of questions along those lines. And so, but if you guys want more specific stuff or like stuff about horror movies, or if I have horror movies, anything like that, like just like I said, leave them down below or just tweet at me or email me, and we'll add those questions here at the end. All right, so I know we've talked a lot about just YouTube and behind the scenes stuff on this stuff, but I figured most of the people listening or watching this have probably been with me for a while or are relatively new to the channel, may not know that I did that stuff or what I'm going to be doing. So I kind of, the channel update videos just don't do that well. If we're being honest, like whenever you want to update people on your channel, it just doesn't go over that well. So I wanted to throw it in something that I think people might actually listen to. And because I want to get it across, I want to put my point out there on what I'm going to be doing, how like my content is not necessarily going to wholly be changing. You're just going to get it more. Like I'm still going to do the 4K stuff. I'm just going back to my roots and covering more of the stuff that I wanted to. So mixing it back in as opposed to covering every 4K. Like I said, you're not going to be getting less content, but you may not get as many 4K reviews, as I probably won't cover them all in videos. We'll be covering them some in the podcast. So you'll get some of the bigger ones that I want to cover, some of the Vinegar Syndrome stuff I want to cover, some of the Scream Factory 7, whatever it is, you're getting the ones that I really think are worth doing full videos on. The rest of them will be in the podcast. So I'll probably actually talk about more physical media than I ever have, because I'm having to make full videos on them and review them. We're going to talk about them here. So I will be burning through more physical media. So you actually get more physical media talk than you ever have, but you're going to get a little more weird horror movie reviews. So let me know again what you think about that. Like, I'm still gonna do it. It's not like it matters, but just curious to kind of see what thought. Did you like that stuff that I used to do? Did you miss it? Did you never know that I did it? That's it. I hope you have enjoyed this first episode. Like I said, we will get more structured over time. Maybe talk about some news, maybe some upcoming stuff that's coming out. Well, because it's gonna be weekly. It's gonna be one of the things we can. Sorry, my allergies are killing me. Weekly, we can talk about like what I picked up on a weekly basis, if I'm covering it or not, what I'm doing outside of this, like all of that stuff. And so I just kind of wanted to be more personable and like kind of let myself go a little bit. I know I don't do that a lot. I don't know that I'll ever do any live streams. It's maybe someday. I don't know. It's just like, I just like more video stuff. I like to edit stuff, not even edit myself out, as most of you. I don't even know if you know this. Most of my videos, even though they have cuts and edits in them, are all one take. I don't do multiple takes. I don't do anything like that. I usually just edit for stylistic purposes, or if I need to cut a chunk out that I don't particularly like. But I typically do stuff in one take. So, like live stuff does not bother me. But I've never found it. I think I have a big enough audience to do a live stream, honestly. And if I don't think I'm going to have the conversations, maybe if I did a live stream with somebody, that would change. Maybe if I was involved in somebody else's live stream, I'd probably do it more so. But for right now, this is a first foray. Start with podcast. Maybe we'll go more in that direction. But anyway, that's pretty much all I've got. So, like I said, definitely subscribe to the channel. If you're not, it definitely does help. Like this podcast, share it with anybody you think that likes physical media and horror. And like I said, leave me some comments with some questions for next week's podcast. And then, what are you picking up? What have you picked up? Are there any horror movies that you think I should check out that are weird, obscure, that you think I may like, that I might possibly cover on the channel? I do have a Patreon. I know I don't like to talk about it a lot, because I mainly made it because, like, to be honest, like my mom and some other friends were like wanting to support me in a way. So I set it up. So I was like, look, this is an easy way. I don't have channel memberships yet. Hopefully the podcast will change that. I have enough subscribers. It's just the watch hours. So hopefully, by having this more long form stuff, I can hit that. Maybe we can do some channel membership stuff that's a little easier for people to digest. But I wanted a way where people could give me like money and support me, but also get something. I don't really like the like, hey, let me just Venmo you $20. I mean, that's cool, but I wanted to do something. So the Patreon is there specifically for that. If you just want to like support me and Obviously physical media isn't cheap, but I do have videos on there. I do some extra like videos that I wouldn't normally do. So I probably will expand it as the podcast goes on. Maybe we'll do some polls there. I do want to start the Discord, and it was initially linked to that. I don't know what I'm going to do with it because I would like to have more conversations with people. So maybe we'll do something with the Discord coming soon, but I'm going to look into all that and kind of think about it. I have a lot of other stuff that I'm thinking about. I've been offered a few things. So I have a lot to think about and a lot to do. So the podcast is the first foray into doing that stuff and actually building this brand and this channel. So again, a lot of different stuff is probably going to be changing over this year. And this is just one of many. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this first podcast. I know it's been all over the place. I like to talk. So, YouTube is kind of like stifling. I know some people like short form. I'm bad at short form stuff. You will never catch me like in my shorts. I kind of stopped doing them because like me in 30 seconds just does not work. Me in 2 hours might work. So, again, this is more freeing for me because I can just relax. There's no like pressure. We're just going to have a conversation and talk. Like I said, I want to get some people on here to kind of talk about stuff, but, yeah, I hope you'd enjoy this. Like I said, we're going to like do some more structured stuff as these go on, and we'll figure out a way in which this works and how we go about the podcast. I may alter how this looks, but like I said, moving the camera into the front is probably very difficult for me. So you're just going to be stuck with the side view. And occasionally I'll look at you. I'll look at you in the beginning and the end, We can look each other in the eyes in the beginning, welcome, and then thank you for joining me. Anyway, that's all I've got. You'll see some videos linked at the end of this podcast if you're on YouTube. And I'll probably eventually have this podcast other places. Right now, it's probably just going to be on YouTube for right now because you got to settle that stuff up, and, we'll see how that goes. But anyway, you can download it if you just want to listen to it on the go. I'll put it in the podcast section. That's all I've got. Thanks for stopping by and watching my first episode of Just the Slip. I have been your host, Chris. I hope you guys have a fantastic week and day. Hopefully, maybe you'll listen to this on your drive or whatever. And I hope I could bring you a little bit of joy and talk about some movies that maybe you love and share as well. So that's what I've got. Thanks for stopping by. And I will talk to you guys in my next video and in my next podcast episode next week. You guys have an awesome day. I'm out.